Right. How's it going, mate?
All good, bro. Yourself?
Good, good. Who are you?
Um, my name's Earl John Charlton, born in South Shields, made on the streets.
Yeah, I'm Ricky Gleeson, also known for a long time as Ricky James until my mid-20s, when I changed my name by deed poll for various reasons. And yeah, I was made on the streets, I suppose, and this is our first From the Outside Looking In podcast. You happy with that name?
Yeah, I love it, mate. Love it.
Yeah. I think
it works for us. It works for us, man.
I think it sums it up, doesn't it? It sums up where we were at one point, especially me until my mid-20s, you a bit longer. But yeah, the whole sort of outside of we were on the margins of society, if you like, on the outside looking in. Think, please let me join in.
We tried.
Join in. Got there, mate. We got there eventually.
Yeah,
so yeah, I was thinking about this as well, because obviously the thing that I struggled with the timeline, trying to work out when things work. Because has it been the same for you?
What I'm doing is, as I said, I'm sending off to get me criminal record, which for me will help me timeline it for what I need. But honestly, when I'm going like from 14 to 16, and then I'm thinking things in between, that's what I'm saying. It is a literal blur.
For me, because I bounced around so much. Do you know what I mean? I bounced around the country so much from 16 until my mid-20s. There's time I can't remember when stuff was, and I then start thinking I was like, oh well, no, I was so and so then, and you know, but So when did we first meet each other, and how do we know each other? So I think we met each other down street before you went into care in South Shields around Ocean Road, when I was about 13 and you would have been about 12. That's what I think.
Was that where the arcade, Ocean Road, where my dad used to work?
Where your dad worked, Hulk Hogan. Yeah, where your dad worked.
Yes, yeah.
Hulk Hogan, yeah.
Yeah.
It was Hulk Hogan hairstyle.
Woodbine, King Street.
Yeah, all of that area, because obviously that's where I used to kick about. So I think we met then. And then it turned out that you got put into care and put in a children's home on the corner from where I ended up living in Simonside. And
that was Henderson Road.
Henderson Road, yeah. So I lived in Newark Crescent. You lived in the children's home on Henderson Road, literally around the corner. And you were 13?
Yeah, I was 13, turned 14.
Yeah, so I would have been 14. I was expelled. Were you expelled by then?
I was then going to Simonside Lodge.
Yeah, I went to Simonside Lodge as well. Yeah.
That was.
Do you know what? That was that was a Bernardo school, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Dr. Bernardo's for behavioural problems.
Yeah.
If they just pulled me out of mainstream school and just put me in Simonside Lodge, I think I would have been all right. But they didn't, and I eventually got expelled from everywhere.
It was supposed to be special needs.
Yes, yeah. Mine was purely behavioural problems.
Yeah, basically.
And then obviously we were both expelled from school, and we got to sit in the front room most of the time while my mother and stepdad was at work, and we watched daytime TV and ate biscuits and ate sandwiches and stuff, and just, you know, that was my schooling. My schooling was done by 14. It was over. That's it. I never went back to school. Did you go to Tutor Reed, hour a day?
I went to Tutor Reed hour a day. That's where I like on me breaks, and that's where I started practicing to play the piano. How long
did you bother going before you sacked it off? Because I sacked it off after 2 weeks.
I liked this. I liked it, but it was a point that I think I was there for about 2 months, and I remember being given an exam to do.
Yeah.
And I did the exam, and I didn't know I did it quick, but I did the exam, give it to the teacher, and it was all right. Yeah. Everything was correct, and she thought I cheated.
Right.
And she told me to do it again.
Yeah. So I went there because obviously I don't know if you know. So it was an hour a day school because it was the law that you have to have 5 hours of education a week. So it was just to tick a box, really. And I got there and I got sat down and they asked me to colour some stuff in. And I was 14 and I was like, you want me to colour things in? And they was like, yeah. And I was like, what's the point in this? And then I remember talking to them about GCSEs and stuff. And I was like, can I do my GCSEs here? And they was like, well, yeah, but I think you could only achieve the very lowest mark. And I was like, is there any point in me being here? And it became clear that And I never went back, and nobody ever came around my house to say, this kid's not going to school, he's supposed to be blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? I just disappeared from the system and never went to school again. What did you get expelled for?
So from what school?
Oh, yeah, you got expelled from everywhere, didn't you?
Unfortunately, I did get expelled for behavioural reasons in nursery.
Nursery?
In Avenue, yeah, in Park Avenue. I did some, I can't remember what I'd done, but my mum would tell me. But then I went to Ridgeway Juniors and behavioural issues. But then again, it wasn't so much behavioural issues, it was just certain things going on back at home. But it was, I got expelled from there for hiding a bucket of water over a teacher, I think it was. And then I went to King George and got done for bullying. People bullying me.
See, hang on, you got expelled for bullying, or you?
No, the bullies were bullying me, and
Right.
I was retaliating the bullies, but I got called the aggressor. But 10 minutes before the aggression happened, they'd never seen the taunting and the picking on, you know what I mean? And that happened from King George to Mortimer.
That's what happened Mortimer as well?
Yeah, in the dinner hall, yeah. Can't say names, yeah, but yeah. Had an incident with a kid in the dinner hall, kept prodding me, poking me, taunting me until, I lost my rage. But I had behavioural issues, I had anger issues, but it was triggers like that made it worse.
Yeah. So I mean, I've got no defence for getting expelled. So yeah, I can't pretend that it wasn't on. I think everybody that knew me knew that I was heading for expulsion. I think we were talking about this, that I ended up in South Shields because I'd been in women's hostels in London.
Yeah, yeah.
So obviously, I'm from just outside of London, but I grew up in London, and then I was in care until I was 8, and then I came out and went back to my mum, and she was always in an abusive relationship. So I was in women's hostels, bouncing around London all the time, and then at 12 years old. I just turned 12. I got woken up during the night, and it was by my mum, and we were moving because said partner had found us. And the only place in the country with a bed was South Shields, which was like 400 and something, I think 380 miles away from London, something like that. It's a long way. It's a different world, I know that. And then that was it. I got woken up during the night. I got put on a coach with my mother, and the next day I was in South Shields, and I went to Mortimer. By the time I got to Mortimer, I think that was like my fifth school in the space of a year, and that was when my behavioural problems really started. And it didn't take long. And also, I just ended up in a situation where I didn't need to go to school. If I didn't want to go to school, I didn't go to school, and it was almost a year that I didn't go. And then when I went back, I was always in trouble. And then eventually, I was constantly getting suspended. And then eventually, I cut a teacher's hair, and that was me kicked out for good. And yeah, and I mean, it sounds bad, it is bad. Yeah, I cut a teacher's hair as she was telling off the producer's dad, because we were in a class together. The producer's dad behind the scenes, he's my best mate, has been since we were kids, nothing like me, comes from a background that's nothing like mine. And yeah, his family was sort of my surrogate family kind of thing. But yeah, that was the only class we were in together, and we'd sort of act up, and he was being told off by a teacher, and I sort of leant across and snipped a bit of a fringe off, and that was me. That was my school life over and out. And then from there, for me, I got thrown out the house at like 15 a couple of times, and sort of bounced about. I think I got fostered briefly over just up from Simonside towards Jarrow. I was in some foster house there, but yeah, I was feral by that point, and if I didn't want to stay there, I didn't stay there. And a lot of the time I'd actually sleep at Nassie's house, who I was just talking about then. And then I just sort of ended up 16, homeless, down in the sort of bed and breakfast world of South Shields, etc. You, right, where had you gone at this point? Because there's a point, I remember we were kicking about with each other at 16 as well, briefly down in Leggett, and then you disappeared and you went off to Bristol, and I didn't see you until I was 19. So what happened? How did you go to Bristol? All that, blah, blah.
Well, that's we spoke about it before, mate. You know, so as I say, a lot happened in that short space of time from that South Shields incident to landing in Bristol. It was a case of hitchhiking. I just went away hitchhiking from the care homes. I remember we was hanging around Beach Road, the hostels. I mean, the B&Bs and that. But run away from Leggett, it was on the A19, and I thought like going to London would be the best option where I could make something of myself.
Streets paved with gold.
That's the one, mate. Yeah, definitely not paved with gold. Found a lot of other things, but not gold.
Did you find any gold?
Nah,
did you find any gold?
A lot of other things, mate. A lot of other things. But like that, I didn't even find much when I first hit there, because all I found was a couple of people that took me under the wing, and it so happened to be it was a couple of Geordies called Steve and Chris, and it was down on Tottenham Court Road Tube Station, where I found a spot where I could beg and everything. And I've come to the second evening, and they've got this blonde-haired girl come over, and I remember giving them pills, some white pills in their hand, to where they said to me, well, I was drinking my cider and stuff like that under the scaffolding. I went, yeah, go on, I'll take some. And you've got to remember, mate, smack and crack weren't, I didn't even know what they were. I thought they were the same thing because they sounded the same, but a bit of dope and a bit of speed and acid, which I used to do through my care home days. Yeah. Was basically all I knew. So these white pills were new to me. So I did take them. I was very naive. And that's all I can remember is taking them, mate. And within 72 hours, I woke up in the psychiatric hospital in Hastings in the Queen's Charlotte Hospital, Seaview Ward. Remember it very clearly. You know, that'll never leave me. And to get there, mate, all the hallucinations were like I was getting chased there through farmers' fields, hallucinating people with literally table legs for legs, and their faces were all stretched and they had axes and machetes and knives, all sorts. But yeah, there were these people, persons, whatever, were chasing me. I thought they were real. But there was police reports of me doing all these incidents. Like when I went to the cottage, I knocked on someone's door in the middle of the night. A couple have answered it, and I've walked in and made tea and coffee and some toast, and they've had to call the police. You know what I mean? So the next thing I remember after that incident was being in the police cell and hallucinating you and Wayne Armstrong cutting yourselves with razor blades, saying, "Come and join us, come and join us."
Madness.
You know? And after that, I woke up in the hospital, and that was just in literally a few months. You know, so there's a lot of content up until Bristol.
Yeah, and then obviously you end up in Bristol.
No, I got taken back to South Shields by social services, which they left me unattended on tranquilizers. They had me on procyclidine through the psychiatric ward that I was in Hastings, and that's where pretty much a lot of it is a blur. A lot of that's a blur because I remember hanging back around Leggett and hanging around certain people that were a lot older than me, taking advantage of me, and getting me to burgle pharmacists and supermarkets and stuff like that, which I went to prison for. And I came out on the 16th birthday of Lord Newton. So I came out, and I was on the hospital wing because of the medication I was on, so it wasn't the best of places neither. Right. So when I came out of there, it was, I was back on the road, and that's when I started making my way towards eventually Bristol. But it was in between that I went to Torquay, hitchhiked out to Torquay, had a bit of summer there, went to Western Superman in 95. That's where I met Ricky's mum, Sue. And that's when I made a home in Bristol. But when I made the home in Bristol, we landed there basically with nothing. She had family, but I had nothing. And I begged for 2.5 weeks to get a deposit for a place to make a home and stuff like that. And then we went to St. Jude's, and that's where Ricky was born. And that's where you come along.
Yeah, so I was trying to work this one out. So obviously I hadn't seen you. And in this time, I'd ended up in Slough. I'd gone back to, which is where I was born. I briefly stayed with some family, and then I moved up into Slough itself, and I moved into a hostel called Cypher. And this is where I really sort of fell into the whole petty crime thing. And it started off, I met a guy there, and, you know, all of us were quite damaged. Do you know what I mean? We were all young. We were all homeless technically. We'd all been put in this hostel kind of thing. Everybody had a pretty grim background, and I didn't know what to do with money. I was always skint. Do you know what I mean? Every time I got any money, it just get blasted on, any kind of drugs, alcohol, anything to sort of get us smashed, if you like, and just get through the day kind of thing. And then it started off that me and some friends would go out and we would burgle pizza shops and stuff and steal their toppings, and then we'd go back and to eat. We would just cook up just a big pan of pizza toppings, just spoon that out of the pan. Do you know what I mean? Loads of us, and then I think I was telling you this. Why I mentioned this because I was on a documentary for the Navy, and I mentioned this on there. That I started off with the sort of not best intentions because it was all crime. Do you know what I mean? But I started off, we're stealing for food, and then we went out to do our usual thing. We're looking for food, and we came across cigarettes instead, and we sold thousands of cigarettes. We stole thousands of cigarettes instead in the boxes of 200, 100, whatever it was back then. And then the next day we sold them on the streets of Slough, literally with just a big rucksack, just walking around. Anyone we saw smoking, we would just walk up to, brazen as you like. What do you smoke? We've got these, half price. Do you want them? Everyone. All these honest people and stuff, as soon as there was something for them, they would straight in. All the taxi firms were buying it, and we made like £600-700 in a couple of hours. And then because our morals had already changed, do you know what I mean? That was it. We was never out looking for food anymore. And then from there, I was just constantly out, constantly in trouble. So I spent the next year in and out of young offenders because I was terrible at it. So I was always getting caught. And then eventually I got kicked out of that hostel, which is a whole nother story because I've never lived in a hostel that I haven't been kicked out of. They just don't work for me. I think they're terrible places for some people, not somewhere that I'd recommend anybody to go. And I know plenty of people that would rather sleep rough, that I've met that would rather sleep rough, and I'm sure you as well.
Myself, I've done it.
Yeah, rather sleep rough than go and live in some of these hostels that are full of awful people. But again, that's another whole podcast, that I reckon. I just sort of fell into that life, and before I knew it, I'd been in and out of young offenders, never for long, never for anything really serious, but constantly because I was homeless. Every time I got arrested, I'd get remanded because I didn't have an address, and they knew that there wasn't really much chance of me coming to the court date, so I would just get remanded. And then we were speaking about this. It got to the stage where it wasn't a consequence getting remanded because I was homeless and I was hungry, and if I got remanded, I got a few weeks of somewhere warm to sleep, 3 meals a day. Do you know what I mean? And it just becomes there's no consequence. So that was me. And then eventually I spent my 18th in Reading prison, Reading Young Offenders. I spent my 18th birthday there. And then not long after that, I moved back up north and sort of bummed about up north, friends' sofas, etc. Nassie, a lot of time at his house, just all over the place. And then I came down to Bristol to stay with you because I'd managed to get in touch with you because your nan lives around the corner from where my mum lived. And she gave me the number. Your nana, sorry.
Yeah.
Your nana lives around the corner from where my mum lived, and she gave me your phone number. So, I rung you from that place in Westgate Road. Not Westgate Road, sorry, in the big market. And they overheard the conversation, knew that I had somewhere to stay if I could get to you in Bristol. So they paid for a coach, and then I came down to Bristol. That's what life was like then. They was like, there's the money for a coach. And you were like, if you can get to Bristol, come down, and that's it. I think I would have been either 18 or just turning 19, and I came down. I think we mentioned this at the time. You were doing all right, man. You had like a nice house. Well, I say house, it was like a masonette in a council estate tower block thing.
It was a nice area. It was all right, man.
It was all right area. I mean, it's all, I say nice is a strong word. It was all right area. But it was all right, wasn't it? And, I remember at the time, these were the days where if you had a fat stereo system, you were doing well. Do you know what I mean? And you had like Kenwood Technics and all that. And it was all right. It was good. And then
the music was good.
The music
Summer's Day were good.
The scene was good. I got on with your neighbours, and they take me to all these sort of Jamaican pubs and stuff, which I was well into at the time. So that was cool. And then I left, right? And then I don't know what happened because when I came back, you were smoking heroin. You'd been smoking. So I don't know how you ended up smoking. I don't know how you ended up sliding into that whole heroin user when I came back.
So
because I came back and became a heroin user with you.
Yeah, yeah. So the first time he came down, was Ricky still with me?
You and Sue had split up.
Right, okay, so that was a decline then. So it was obviously parties, amphetamine, stuff like that I went into, just my mind was gone. 1 minute I had a child in a happy home. Next day I didn't. So that was painful, mate, and it was, I started using amphetamine, so I was going basically too fast and I started getting like psychosis. So I knocked it on the head, but I knocked it on the head next door neighbour. I don't know if you remember the lad that used to live next door to me. He actually used to smoke heroin all the time, called Jason. Right. Yeah. And basically what happened is I was smoking the Hubbly Bubbly bong and he put a bit of powder on top. He never told me what it was. At first, that's the first time I ever took it. He never told me what it was. When I took it, I got the effects of what I would say is a gout straight when you nod off. So coming around from that, I thought like only 10 minutes had passed by when actually 2-3 hours had passed by.
Yeah.
And that was something straight away. I found this escapism. I found something that suppressed for them 4 hours everything, all the shit that was going on in my head. So immediately I took another one.
Yeah. So then because I came back, I'm not really sure how again, the timeline's weird in my head, but I came back, and I think I would have been about.
I tell you, I was born when I was 18. No, Ricky was born. Sorry, Ricky was born when I was 18 years old. So he was only 6 months.
I think I came back right at about 20. Yeah, about 20, because at the time I was involved with some charities and stuff. That's how I work out. I was about 20, and then it didn't take me long before I asked you for some heroin as well. The only way I can explain it is that by then, I'd sort of take anything. I was very homeless by that point.
Yeah.
I'd been all over the country. I was always bouncing around from one place to the next, and I'd only be there for a few months before I would outstay my welcome, and I have to go. So I started smoking with you, and it's the same thing. It's the only drug that I've ever taken that the moment I smoked it, I thought I understand why people get so addicted to this. I was using it for about a year. My lifestyle, which was already pretty bad anyway because of the fact that I was homeless and sort of in that environment, but I remember it just plummeted, just awful. And then all of a sudden the only people are other heroin users.
Yeah.
And I fully understand why you end up in that cycle, because all of a sudden it's everything, and that's the only people you sort of socialize with, heroin users. And I saw something the other day that if you surround yourself with 5 really successful people, you'll be the 6th successful person, and if you surround yourself with 5 junkies, you'll probably end up the 6th junkie kind of thing.
Yeah.
So and then from there I think we were both sort of using it, and I went off again, and when I went off, that's actually when I started sorting my life out kind of thing. I went off, I remembered when we were talking earlier that I went off and got involved with the charity that sent me to Africa to volunteer for a few months. Rally International, and that's where everything sort of started changing for me because of the friends that I made out there. But that's at the point that you seem to have hit your really, really low point in London. Is that right?
No, I was still in Bristol, mate, because I went to Fairbridge, knowing that you went to Fairbridge. I went to Fairbridge and I started doing out and bound courses with them. Yeah. And even at the time I was on my methadone. I must have started on methadone at this point. And what they'd done, they got me into a place called the Amber Foundation in Tottenham, Marlborough. It was like a career development centre, a rehab basically. Months in there before I left, and ended up coming back to Bristol, relapsing again. And at this point, Sue was living in Stapleton Road, Easton. Is it Easton in Bristol?
Yeah.
And that's where I relapsed, and it got out of control at the point of where I remember in Easton, I started doing crazy things I never ever thought I'd. My morals and everything went out the window when that addiction hit me, maybe because I had to support it. And I started doing burglaries and I've done my time for them and that, but yeah, it's not just commercial. I was doing dwellings during the day, making sure people weren't in the props and stuff like that, to support a habit to where I got caught and I went to prison in 1999, a week and a half before the millennium. So I seen the millennium in jail, and then I seen me 21st in jail as well. And then I came out on the 27th of September 2000 to find out, when I did go back to Bristol, where I thought I still had that property in St. Jude's, to knock on the door to find out that it had been given up, and two African couple answered the door, and basically, yeah, it was their property. So all the work I'd done in jail to better myself when I come out to what I thought was a home wasn't there no more. And straight away, I went to the Salvation Army in St. Jude's, the big, massive red building.
Yeah.
Second day, end up relapsing. You know, everyone using in there and that. And I took myself then off to my dad's back in Newcastle, in Bowling Colliery, where I did a cold turkey to the point where my dad had to get an ambulance for me to take me to South Shields Hospital. They had me in there for 48 hours, 36 hours, something like that. And they got me on a methadone program to where I was able to function in that again. And I took off again. And that's when I went to London. That's when I went to find Ricky and in fact locate where Sue was. So that would have been about summer of 2000, Christmas 2000, where I first found Crisis at Christmas. But I was sleeping at London Bridge with my cardboard box and that. But I made a little home at the side of the car park.
Yes, I mean, we were talking about this. Obviously, I was homeless for a long time. There was a few times I sort of slept rough, if you like, and I sort of slept outside. There was periods of times where I would always find somewhere to sleep. I never really slept in a shop doorway or anything like that. I would always find some sort of unused area that I could break into, if you like, and would sort of stay there. So we would talk about, I used to sleep in a scrapyard in South Shields when they were out. I used to sleep in an old porter cabin of a florist, where on the night time they would put all their flowers from their shop into this porter cabin out the back, and then they would close all that up, and I could sneak into. I worked out way to the window, and I would sneak into it and sleep in this porter cabin of lovely flowers with a heater and everything. Do you know what I mean? And I was there for about 4 or 5 months, and nobody ever knew that I was there, so I never slept rough. But you did full blown sleeping.
Yeah, I've slept in everything, mate.
Dweller.
Yeah, in doorways, underneath car parks. I've slept in bin sheds. I've got into places when I could get into places basically where I'd have to make my way through certain properties to get just a bit of shelter for the night, jumping over gardens, sleeping in people's sheds sometimes. But when in the city of London, it was mostly bin sheds underneath car parks. But I did make a little home, believe it or not, in a place in Whitecross Street, behind Waitrose, at the Market Stall container. The Market Stores was stored. And we had a little TV. We had a little bit of Freeview box, a music system, a couple of mattresses. But yeah, the street was that much for me. I actually end up making it my home. Because I didn't know any different, really,
And is that when, because I know that you love The Big Issue, as in for what they've done for you. Yeah. And I briefly sold The Big Issue as well, and I've got a lot of time for The Big Issue. And I mean, I only did it briefly when I was, I think, 17 up in Newcastle. But I always remember that people would sort of look down on me as a big issue vendor, as though I was sponging. And I don't think that they realised what we were talking about. I don't think people realised that I had to, I don't know if it's changed now, but I had to put up the money to buy the magazines up front, then go and sell them. Which for me at the time, I was like, well, that's how anything works. I'm buying something out of my own money,
perception.
And then I'm selling it for hours at a time, which is, that's buying and selling. What's wrong with that? That's an honest living, surely. Do you know what I mean? But same as what you were saying, the public perception is that we get given those magazines and we get, everything's free. And
for every magazine. Go on.
How long did you do The Big Issue for?
Well, I did the Big Ish for 18 years, and as I says, nothing's changed. When I come back home in 2016, doing all the Big Ish all the years I have, from North to country, from London up to Newcastle, I still think I'm a big issue vendor. I have a big issue vendor for 18 years. It will never leave
Mate,
me.
you said yourself. I remember you said yourself you were a proud big issue vendor. Do you know what I mean?
I will
And
still stand that.
I saw your setup, mate. It wasn't just like standing there. You had a full blown little Union Jack behind you, radio and pop up shop and all that. Weren't you doing card? You were taking card as well, weren't you?
I was the first ever, and I still would be the only vendor in Newcastle to have an iZettle card reader, thanks to the Big Issue. And I'll get to that bit in a second, because what I want to do, state, like you just stated, a lot of people still think we're getting for nothing. I mean, the Big Issues, they think that we'll make like this £3 profit off each magazine, that not realising we pay for every magazine in advance, £1.50, come out and sell it.
And I've seen
£1.50. It's self-employed in some ways.
I've seen you stood out there saying, I can't go yet, I have to sell these. Do you know what I mean? I have to sell these, otherwise I don't make my money. Also in London, though, is that when the heroin, isn't that where you injected for the first time and it all went to absolute?
Yes, so that's going back to the first time I hit London when I come out of prison in 2000.
I've never done that, but am I right in thinking that that's game over?
It's not game over, but right, this is what I'll tell people that, tell you guys this. When you're in a house, when you've got your little flat or your hostel or your B&B and you're a heroin user, it's easy to chase the dragon, put it on the foil, your powder and smoke. When you're on the street and you're in doorways and alleyways and tunnels and you've got the wind, you're not risking that £10 bag going on the foil to blow away. So it wasn't a case of that for my first injection. It was a case I was sick, cold turkey, and a Scottish lad had a bit of gear. He went, I've got a bit of gear, but I'm putting it all in the works. He wouldn't give me a bit of smoke. Because
the works meaning the works
the needle, the syringe,
right.
And then to find out that he never had the 1 mils or half mils, or only blues, 2 mils. I don't know so you get different size needles. So basically, what I tried to explain it for, it wasn't just, and that had to go in my groin. Right. And that's the first time I injected in my groin was with basically a 2 mil syringe. And he did it for me as well. And not just that, he just did it for me. He did it on a stairwell at the side of the guy's hospital. You know what I mean? Grim. It is. That's pretty grim. It is, mate. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. And that's why I stayed from that day. And I started using and finding out how to inject myself, and that. It was the worst thing I could have ever done. Yeah. Because it was easy to do. It's quick on the street. It takes 5 minutes to do it. 1 minute to hit it. And then that's it. All your problems have gone again instantly. That you're going through.
Yeah. So then, like we're going over the timeline again. Then I don't see you for absolutely years, right? I mean, I lost contact with you, and I looked for you and everything. I was always like trying to work out where you were, kind of thing. I think there was a point where I'd gone back to Bristol, where I couldn't find you, and then obviously I was saying now I got in touch with through Fairbridge. I'd done this thing called Rally International, where I went out. I was homeless at the time, and I remember Rally International. What they were doing is when I had to go to the sort of selection weekends and stuff, they were literally finding out where I was by me ringing them from phone boxes, because this was back in the day when we didn't have mobile phones and stuff like that. And I was ringing, and they'd find out where I was, and they'd get train tickets to the nearest station I was, and I would turn up with nothing. Do you know what I mean? Literally go and do these selection weekends, and then I got picked for it, and then I went to Africa and volunteered there for 3 months, doing all the stuff that you hear volunteers do, building schools and stuff. And I became friends. There was a load of us that were from inner city area, and there was mainly gap year students that were all mainly privately educated and from posh backgrounds. Do you know what I mean? And they were rich kids and stuff. And I became, because I spent 3 months there, I became really good friends with a few of them. And one in particular, who we didn't like each other at the start, but by the end of it, we'd spent the whole time together, and we were really good friends. And then when we got back, he sort of explained that his dad was at the time the managing director of Tarmac. So these guys had some wedge and stuff, and by pure fluke, he was starting university at Newcastle University. So when we all came back, my sort of friendship with them carried on, and I went all of a sudden. I was still homeless, but I was homeless, hanging around with a load of students, and a lot of the time I was staying in the spare rooms at the halls of residence. So I sort of lived a sort of half homeless, half studenty lifestyle until mid-20s, when they all left and my mum passed away, and then all of a sudden I had to sort of grow up a bit. And then so that was it. And I started off by washing dishes. That was how I sort of got into sort of getting out of the situation where I was always on benefits and whatnot. And I was washing dishes and I was always sleeping on people's floors and stuff. And then after my mum passed away, I went down south with my missus, and things started sort of getting there, as in, I was never really homeless again. I was never far away from it. It was always very, what's the word I'm looking for? I was always vulnerable. We was only ever one paycheck away from, we was always stressed about, are we going to end up losing this place and being homeless, etc. Blah, blah, blah. And then miraculously, fast forwards, when I'm 31, I realized that I haven't been in trouble for 10 years, and I went and spoke to some people, and I managed to get into the forces. And it wasn't long after that I then found you on Facebook, and then we met up. And at the time, I think we clean of heroin at the time, but still a really bad sort of alky.
Is this when we met up?
Greenwich, when we met
Greenwich,
up in Greenwich,
2015. We went with Ricky and fell over the can.
Mate, he fell off the cannon and broke his shoulder.
Yeah.
and so
that was 2015, mate.
Were you still on the gear then, or were you?
Yeah, I was still on the gear, on the methadone, on the drink, as you know, as you've seen.
So when did you get clean of the gear?
Right, so we're going back and then forth. So obviously there's a lot of content, and we're not going to fill it all in one pod. So I'll go from when I was in London, going through basically from London Bridge over to North London, Old Street area, and that is where I continued my drug use and where I started becoming a big issue vendor properly. Yeah. So I started doing the barbecuing station, founding station, and begging locally when I needed to, because obviously I was using what I used to make, you know what I mean? I supported my addictions, and this is where I met Becky, who I'm with now, 15 year, and it was when I met Becky, it was a big game changer for me, Yeah. We had a nice little home and everything, and then things happened, and we end up relapsing to the point of where addiction got out of control. But I was still trying to continue doing the big issue, but not getting access to what support they really had. I just wanted to turn the magazines over and make some money, support what I was doing, to where we were starting to work for drug dealers, selling drugs, street level dealers, working for dealers to support the addiction, where it got so out of control. We're working for 3 dealers, and that was crazy. They never knew that we're working for one another, and we had all this money and drugs and mixed up to a point of where we all got out of control and in debt. We ended up grabbing Becky one night and running away, putting us in a very difficult position where we couldn't go back, So we went away and we blazed all the drugs and spent the money, and we support work. I managed to get us a B&B out of the way in Mile End, to where that's where we really started focusing basically on using less and sorting ourselves out. I was at Farringdon Station one day, sitting down begging, and a businessman called John Morris, who became like a brother, father figure to me, and sadly passed away in 2017, where he took an interest in me in a sense of I didn't know he had addictions of alcohol himself at that point, but where he seen my drink beside me, see me sitting down, he engaged with me, and used to chats about just about life, really. He never took no judgment on me, and I told him about my situation, I told him about the addictions and that, and every few days we'd go on the park and have chats, to the point of where he helped me reunite with Ricky after 8 years, my son, who's named after you. And that's when you came to the house that day, and Sue's house, and I seen you look like from little Ricky to the tank.
4 stone
You know?
heavier.
Yeah.
4 stone heavier.
I know.
It's mad, that, isn't it? 4 stone heavier.
I know he looks so healthy.
So, I mean,
So when I started getting clean, like the reuniting with you, reuniting with my son, and John Morris taking a big interest in helping me, I started going like the manor house and learn how to do longbow, archery, learned me how to drive, reunited with my son, come over every weekend. And it started showing better in myself to a point of where I see my sister on Facebook. I searched her and I reached out, or she reached out to me. So she see me on Facebook because I had a new phone.
Yeah.
And I told him, and he thought it absolutely amazing that my family's reached out, and he's basically the guy that can help us get there. And he did. He helped us reconnect with me family. Had a reunion in Christmas in 2015 to where I came home on the 29th of March 2016. And that's when the last day that me and Becky used in Hackney Central London, 34B Amherst Road. I remember clearly, mate. And I was still coming home though on 90 mils of methadone and still an alcoholic, 15 to 20 cans a day. Yeah. So what I'd done, I specifically focused on reducing the alcohol intake and then went to detox, come off that, reduce my methadone intake and then come off that. And now on Monday, 29th of March, mate, I'll be 5 years clean, 4 years dry and 3 years off my methadone.
That's phenomenal, mate. It's mental, isn't it?
And what I'll do, you know...
sorry. Like even do you know what? Because even when I saw you, when you'd stopped using heroin, when you was living at Leggett, and I came down to meet you and you were drinking and stuff. I mean, I'm not lie. Even I thought there was no hope. Do you know what I mean? I thought that's it, no hope back. And then I remember, because I still speak to your ex, obviously the mother of your son. I still speak to her, and I remember when I came up to visit you at Newcastle Central Station when you explained that you were clean, everything, blah blah. I was up in Scotland at the time on the Queen Elizabeth because I was through that. So I came to visit you here. I remember as soon as I saw you, I was like, he's back, a totally different person. I rung Sue afterwards and said, look, I know you don't really speak at the moment, but I've just met him and he is a completely different guy. Like it was like the old Earl was back kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So yeah,
that means a lot coming from you. You know, I know you've said it a few times now, but every time you say it, mate, you know, especially when you know it was.
Well, yeah, mate. Yeah, I didn't think you were coming back from it, so yeah, it was good to see. So that's where we're at. So where we're at now, kind of thing. Obviously, I'm in the Royal Navy, which is mental. I joined at 31. Like I said, I hadn't been in trouble for 10 years. You know, I was bouncing from job to job, no qualifications. See, like I said, I've not been in trouble, living a pretty honest, good life, if you like. Do you know what I mean? But I had no qualifications, messed up all the start of it. Every job was a lie. Every job interview I went to was just me sitting down and just being really good at lying. And all my CVs were made up kind of thing with jobs on there that, you know, of companies that had gone bust. So I put down that I'd worked at so-and-so call centre knowing that it had gone bust and that, you know, my mates would be my, the references. You know, employers would ring my mate Justin and he'd be like, yeah, I'm his reference, blah. But then, I was just bouncing from so many jobs to job. I just realised all of a sudden if I didn't sort something out, that's it. That was my life for the rest of it. You know, I was just going to be, you know, bouncing from very low paid job to very low paid job. So I walked into the careers office in Newcastle and had a very, very frank, honest conversation for the first time ever about everything that I'd done and how much I'd messed up and everything. And I got talking to a guy called Chief Caesar, Chief Petty Officer Caesar, who came down and pulled me into a room and just said, go on then, tell me everything. And I told him absolutely everything and was just really honest and said that I'd messed up. Is there any chance that I can get in? Everything's spent. And I had to go off and get my criminal record. It's what you were saying earlier. I had to go and get mine, you know, I think it's 29 pages long, 42 convictions, 11 sort of prison sentences or times that I got remanded and stuff. And you'll do the same. I read over it and I was like, reading stuff. I can't remember. I can't remember doing these things. And they're so.
It's going to be scary.
some of them are so petty and so embarrassing. Do you know what I mean? I'm reading it thinking, what, like, how have you been arrested? Why have you done that? Whatever it was that I can't remember. Still look at it and think, how have you ended up in that situation? But anyway, yeah, so, you know, I had to go and get that. I had to fess up to everything, just be completely honest. And then I won't lie, I had nothing but support from the Royal Navy. And the next thing, you know, he got me in as quickly as possible as well, because I explained the situation I was in. And the next thing, off I was at Raleigh doing my
You got a big enough glass?
Pint glass, isn't it? Pint of water. 45 days sober.
Nice one, bro.
Yeah. 45 days not drinking, yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, so I got nothing but support. I went off the Rally, did my 9 weeks training. What had actually happened, which we're going to a whole different time, is I got really fit. I'd fallen into boxing training and whatnot in and around Newcastle, and I'd got really, really fit. So when I turned up at Rally to do my training, I sort of breezed through it all, and the next thing I know, I was down in Cornwall doing my training, and then suddenly I was in the Royal Navy, and I was going to do 4 years. And in June, it'd be 12 years I've done. And yeah, it's mental. And what do you do now? Because it's all changed for you, because you're not a big issue vendor anymore.
Well, no, it all started. I mean, I was very happy and comfortable in many ways. Like a friend explained the other day, when I was a big issue vendor, I settled in Newcastle Central Station, coming off the gear and being clear-minded. My boat was like that, you know. And I'd never been for a job interview in my life. Hold on, me dog, man. I've never been in an interview or job interview in my life. And when the first lockdown happened, so basically 2019, it was my first ever bank account I ever got in my life. I had to get a provisional license for that, which the Big Issue Foundation stuck by me to get. And I had to fight 4.5 months to prove who I was, because they said I was wiped off every system. But, you know, I mean, if there's a warrant out for my arrest, I'm sure it'll pop up, you know. It's true, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I was wiped off.
Debts.
Yeah, definitely. But no, Earl John Charlton was not in any system. So I managed to get my bank account. Luckily, the whole thing was perfect timing, provisional license. I started learning to drive, which I'm still learning to drive, but COVID, you know, restrictions.
Yeah.
I got I was a card reader, so when I was in the Big Issue, I was now using it as a business. And on all of a sudden, it was going okay. Then lockdown came, and I thought, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? I'm a Big Issue vendor. That's all I know what to do. So I had multiple CVs already with me on my pitch, on my pop-up shop, which I used to like hand out to people that just take the time and talk to me. But I had to take it up a level. I had to start doing proper applications, you know. Because I had no income. The Big Issue was supporting us week in, week out through the lockdown, but it wasn't covering what I was making and covering the bills I need to pay. And remember, I've been homeless on and off for many, many years, 25 years, Ricky. And one goal and one promise, I said to Becky, one, we'll never go hungry and we'll never be homeless again. And I never missed a bill up until that point. And me, the priority is rent, you know, and then everything else can come along. So what I started doing is hiring a guy called Jeremy Kane from the Mercy Hub across the road from my Big Issue pitch. From the church, started letting me do applications and help me do the applications for jobs. So like LNR Northern. Now, remember, I had a job interview in my life, and the guy from LNR actually come and see me in person, called Alan, took me CV, said, you interested in the job? I went, took me CV, immediately come back, give me an interview. And then I applied for the Northern one. And by the time he come back and said, I'll give you an interview date, Northern had contacted me and said, we would like to give you an interview date. So I had one after another on each day. And I went for them, mate. And lo and behold, my first ever 2 job interviews, I got the both fucking jobs. I was absolutely buzzing. I didn't mean to swear there. I was absolutely buzzing.
You did swear, did you? Did you swear? I don't think you did.
I might have in my head then.
Oh, yeah, you might. Who knows? I'm sure Josh can bleep out. Josh can get rid of it.
So I did. I got my first ever 2 jobs, mate, you know, and I had to choose from one or the other, and I had to go for medicals and that as well. So the guy from LNR told me, because this is only a 12-month contract and the Northern one was a salary permanent position, he said, go for that one. So I went for it and they sent me for a medical. And unfortunately, I failed with a medical on health grounds and stuff like that. So what I'd done a shout out on Facebook and I sort of approached it as I was honest as I can on Facebook, and lo and behold, my old mate there, Ricky, seen it and basically asked a few friends if there's any work going through his list, and a company called All Aspects Installation got in contact with him and
they weren't friends. They just saw the post and agreed.
Oh, was it?
They were. I didn't know them. They just saw what I posted and was just like, yeah, we want to help them out, kind of thing. And
yeah, well, they stepped up then. They stepped up. They stepped up to the mark and said, we don't care about your past, but believe what you can bring to the table. So they give me an opportunity. So I got my first third job in a year, in many ways, which is pretty epic. Not ever going for a proper job in my life before. And I was on my third day away, on the way back home. And I phoned Brian Burridge from North East Homeless. And I was like, do you want to give him the good news? And I did give him the good news, but it wasn't, he turned around and went, well, I was going to offer you a job. We were going to offer you a job at North East Homeless, a salary, a pension and everything, bud. And I was like, is this for real? 4 jobs in a matter of 2 months. And now I told the installation company, I said, I've been offered a job at North East Homeless. And they said, well, the work's not guaranteed. Take North East Homeless. So now I've had my first ever job in my life. I'm working now for North East Homeless. So the life I've lived through homeless and addictions, I'm putting to good use, and I've got my first ever council property. I can now pay me bills and secure a home and a life. Instead of existing, I'm starting to live a little bit, lad.
You didn't know what salary was, did you?
I didn't, mate, Brian. So this is still stresses me. I'm still like that, right? So in December, middle of December, just like Christmas and stuff like that, where I've got a good rapport with my customers and a good trade. It's one of my best peak times with a big issue, and Brian had to give me a job, and then told me I had 5 days off, and my body went into shock. You know what I mean? He went, Devin began selling you big issues. I went, why? I've got to make money. He went, no, you get paid for your days off. And it took me weeks to work that out. How can he be paying me for my days off until you explain it to me?
A salary. Yeah, you're on a salary.
And a pension. Mate.
And you pay tax at last. Do you know what I mean? You pay tax like the rest of us pay.
Yeah,
man. So
get
used to that.
I thought I'd only become a pensioner, Ricky. Never mind getting a pension.
Get used to looking at your wage slip and thinking they've took how much? Why are they taking that much?
Well, I have to be honest, because my first ever job, I get the first 6 months or 12 months tax free.
So,
and
then it's going to kick in. And then it's going to kick in, and you'll be like, so this is the real world, is it? This is real.
Yeah.
This is what they mean when they say that.
This is what it's all about. I'm not just putting back in and paying my way now. I'm putting back into something that's haunted me for many years. You know what I mean, and kept me at bay. Now I'm honestly, I'm on the ball and I'm doing what I do best, and that's helping people that I can relate to, mate.
Innit? It's like so we were talking about this as well. Obviously, with the Navy, it was a big thing about the trouble that I've been in. Do you know what I mean? And when I was on, there was a documentary about Queen Elizabeth that I was part of that as well.
That's right.
And they sort of mentioned about the trouble that I've been in, because it's a good story about the fact that I've been in trouble, and the Navy have been nothing but supportive of me, because I managed to stay out of trouble for so long, and it changed my life completely. I've got I'm in the military, so there's times where it stresses you out because it's a disciplined thing, and I have to do what I'm told and toe the line and take orders and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Which doesn't come naturally, but I do it, and I've got no qualms with saying at the moment I joined up, it's completely changed my life. But with the trouble, all that trouble that I've got into, I don't really think about it. It doesn't define me as a human being, but the homelessness still to this day defines me as a human being. Like, I'll never forget being homeless. It was awful. Yeah, it was. I mean, I've forgotten a lot of the crime. Like I said, I look at my criminal record. I can't remember most of it. I look at the times that I did get sent inside, nothing harrowing, you know, vague memories kind of thing. You know, I think someone was sort of feeling sorry for me because I spent my 18th birthday inside. I deserved to spend my 18th birthday inside. You know what I mean? That's why I was there. But I didn't deserve the homelessness in my eyes, and it shapes me. And so here we are now. And well, yeah, that's it.
Well, you know, both of us are at a point now, you know, so for me, people have recognised how I've done my recovery and how far I've come. You know, I've got things happening, bud. We've got the book, hopefully being launched at Christmas.
Yeah.
I was a published poet last year. Who did you think?
Who'd
become a published poet? I mean, me.
You know
what I mean? It's unbelievable. It's just all this, mate, all this stuff.
And now we're doing
last
this
year,
as well.
Through the COVID and all, and people say you shouldn't hold it back. You know what I mean? You've had a good year, you know, because everyone going through what they're going through, and you know, I mean, this is unprecedented times. And people say you should be letting people know. You know what I mean? You've had an epic year.
Well, yeah. And then obviously you mentioned to me that somebody had mentioned that they thought you should do a podcast, and you know, I'm like, I love a camera.
Straight on it, yeah.
I love a camera, me. So but the same thing. Like I like telling my story. I love your story, and I think that it'd be interesting if we get to do more. Because I know some people have got in touch with me, and there's people that managers of the hostel that I stayed in, would like to have a chat, and the paramedic would like to have a chat and would talk to him about. And he wants to talk to us about their dealings with homeless people and the things that they see, etc. And just anybody that sort of got the same sort of similar story where life was really, really, really shit for them, and they were on the outside looking in, and then turned it round. I think it's a good thing to do.
So the people that
hopefully what we're going to do. That's hopefully what we're doing. It.
So the people that reach out, obviously, I would like to say, many people that watch us and view this somewhere along the line have known someone or themselves have suffered with homelessness and addictions, and sometimes it takes people like ourselves and other people sitting, watching and go, oh, look, I'm going through that shit. I mean, stuff, and I'm sure hopefully if just one, takes notice of that, gets a bit of education from it, get people's stories back and forth. I'm not trying to change the world, I'm just trying to change people's perception of what homelessness and addiction is about.
Also, we talked about this. You think about what we haven't even, because we did a sort of practice and we covered a few different areas, and then I think we spoke about it today. We realised that when we started talking about the mental health issues, we realised that that's a whole different. Do you know what I mean? That's a whole. That could fill up hours. I mean, because I know you've had mental health issues.
Well, that's why I didn't get into that bit. Yeah, and I've had big issues.
Big issues, but mental health issues.
I know.
My mother took her own life, kind of thing. So she suffered with mental health issues. You had your issues. I've had issues here and there. So I'm looking forward to it, mate.
There's so much in what we did on our first one. It's going to be many, many more podcasts because there's a lot to talk about and a lot of people to talk to and listen to.
We'll see where it goes.
Oh, I'll go there, mate. It will do.
I think we've got to the end. I think we've
no
done
worries.
It.
Yeah, man.
Without swearing loads as well.
I've done it once.
You only swore once. I don't think I've sworn.